Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon to SCMA Conversations, Wrestling Embrace, Observing Connection and Reflection with Jeff Kasper. My name is Lauren Shea Warner, and I am the Membership Engagement and Stewardship Coordinator at SCMA. Thank you for being part of our community and for spending your afternoon with us. We're especially excited to gather with you today for the final program of the season's SCMA Conversations series. Jeff Kasper's work is featured in our current exhibition, Don't Mind If I Do, on view through June 28th. Through his artistic practice, Jeff explores connection, care, participation in the ways we engage with one another and ourselves. We are delighted to have him with us today to lead this interactive experience. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few brief housekeeping notes. Today's program is designed to be participatory, and Jeff will provide additional details about how we'll engage together once we get started. There will also be time at the end at the program for our participants who wish to share their work via the chat function, as well as for a Q&A discussion. Throughout the program, please use the Q&A feature to submit questions. You can also use the chat box if you want to mention anything that you're learning during the time. We'll reserve time again at the end to explore all those questions and comments together. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Jeff Kasper. Jeff Kasper is a Northampton-based artist and educator. His public art, participatory learning, and making experience bring together design thinking, mindfulness, storytelling, dialogue, and community building. Kasper's projects explore how people navigate social support, proximity, and care in everyday life. Kasper is a featured artist in Don't Mind If I Do at SCMA, and he is an associate professor at UMass Amherst and a trauma-informed teaching artist certified with the Bartol Foundation. I will now hand this over to Jeff.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Lauren, for hosting this conversation. I'm so excited to be with you this afternoon. Um, so this afternoon, I will guide you through a stream of image descriptions, poetic texts, and contemplative reflections. At the core of this lecture is storytelling. I'll be occupying many voices, overheard conversations, voice notes, meditations, and the inner monologue. The images shared today will be of objects that I've created, design ephemera, workshop and exhibition documentation, participatory art, the artworks of my peers, and my own writing. Throughout the session, there'll be two opportunities for creative writing and journaling, where we'll pause for a few minutes. So if you have your notebook and pencil handy or sketchbook, that would be great. You're welcome to participate in any way that feels comfortable for you. Feel free to move or rest, listen gently, or simply notice what resonates. As mentioned, we'll have a brief Q&A at the end, and there'll be opportunity to share a little bit about what you were writing about later in today's event. So let's begin. I'd like to begin with the exhibition currently on view at Smith College Museum of Art called Don't Mind If I Do. Many of you may have gotten a chance to go there. Some of you might not have a chance, so I want to talk a little bit about Don't Mind If I Do. The exhibition emerged from the show's central artist Finnegan Shannon's Access Fantasy, a museum exhibition where visitors could simply sit down and let the artwork come to them. It's a deceptively simple idea. The gallery is furnished with couches, armchairs, blankets, pillows, air purifiers, audio guides, and spaces to rest. At the center is a slow-moving conveyor belt carrying small touchable artworks by Lucchesa Bronfman Verissimo, Palina KK Brown, Sky Kubikub, Emily Gassot, Felicia Griffin, Josilia Rebecca Hughes, Finnegan Shannon, and myself. The exhibition is curated by Lauren Leving and was originally commissioned by Mocha Cleveland. The exhibition reimagines the museum not as a place of constant movement, but as a place where rest, slowness, and access are central forms of participation. I love watching people encounter the exhibition for the first time. At first, sometimes I notice there's confusion, like, what is this? But then the confusion makes way for really deep expressions of delight. People settle into chairs. In this image, you see like comfy red chair with pillows, a beautiful wood chair. And as you moved throughout the space, you would, get to choose your recliner or your chaise lounge, perhaps a wheelchair, perhaps a booster seat, whatever feels right for you. So, as people settle into the chairs, conversations emerge between strangers. Objects drift slowly around the room on the conveyor belt, disappearing and returning like memories. The exhibition seems to operate on a different sense of time. There is no prescribed route, no pressure to keep moving, and no fear of falling behind. The artwork arrives when it arrives. What I find so moving about Don't Mind If I Do is that it transforms museum viewing into a shared social practice. The conveyor belt becomes a river carrying fragments of lived experience through a temporary community of people gathered together in the same room. The exhibition reminds me that accessibility is not only about removing barriers, it's also about designing conditions for encounters. Designing for the possibility that people might remain with an object, a feeling, or one another a little longer than expected. The work I'll discuss today, this afternoon, has always been concerned with a similar question. How might we design structures that help people practice being together? And that feels like an appropriate place to begin today's conversation. One object that periodically circles the room is a compact mirror I created from my ongoing series of reflective keepsakes titled Things Remembered. Etched into its mirrored surface are the words, I look fabulous, but I'm in a lot of pain. As the compact rotates beneath the gallery lights, visitors often laugh, then they pause. The object performs a kind of emotional double take. It names something many disabled and chronically ill people know intimately: the distance between appearance and experience, between how we're perceived and what we're carrying. Things remembered. I look fabulous, but I'm in a lot of pain. An etched compact mirror, it's gold and reflective. I look fabulous, but I'm in a lot of pain. Not all is what it seems. I want to give presence to powerful, invisible experiences of disability, trauma, and pain. A duality or discordance between what is seen and what is felt. How can we make highly visible everyday acts of love, care, and support? A little later, another object comes into view, a small black box of game cards titled Wrestling Embrace. Nearby sit a chrome service bell and an hourglass. Visitors pick up the cards, read prompts, a game for two players. Partners ring the bell, flip the timer, and find themselves reflecting on questions of trust, boundaries, support, and vulnerability. You draw a card and it says, hold a distance no more than 3 feet. If you draw this card, share it with your partner, then switch places. Each partner must perform as their idea of the other person. Take turns alternating impersonation. Where would we be without play? What would our relationships be without the spirit of playfulness? What if we could role play our most naughty interpersonal interactions? Can we practice embrace, support, or vulnerability? Is distance the only truth of closeness? I often say that wrestling embrace began with a question that seemed much smaller than it really was. How will you learn to feel safe with another person again? Not in theory, not as an idea, in the body. The project emerged from queer peer support spaces where many of us were living with the afterlives of violence, anxiety, grief, and shame. We spoke about relationships, intimacy, fear, and touch. Again and again, our conversations return to the same challenge. How do we practice vulnerability when vulnerability has carried consequences? As an artist and designer, I found myself looking for structures that could hold uncertainty. Games, diagrams, exercises, prompts, not solutions, but companions, ways to rehearse trust. This image consists of 6 small drawings of hands. At first glance, they look instructional, almost clinical. A page from a manual, a sequence of gestures, fingers interlaced, palms touching, hands loosely connected, one hand gently holding the other by the wrist. But for me, these drawings began as something else. After experiencing violence for holding hands with a former partner in a public space, I became aware of how fear can settle into the body. Fear changes the distance between people. It changes how long you linger. It changes whether you reach for someone's hand at all. These drawings and many of the works I'll show you today emerge from a confidential queer PTSD peer support space where we were trying to rebuild trust in ourselves and in one another. They became practice aids, small scores for repetition, ways of saying, try again, hold for a moment longer, notice your breath, notice the feeling, notice what you're still holding on to, notice that you're still here. What moves me now is that how these artworks have traveled beyond their original context. They're no longer about queer relationships or trauma recovery. Well, they're no longer only about that. They've become images of cooperation and collaboration. They ask simple questions. How do we support one another? How much pressure feels comfortable? What does it mean to hold, to guide without controlling, to receive care as well as to offer it? Each drawing describes a slightly different relationship between dependence and autonomy. Together, they form a quiet archive of human connection and consent. 6 gestures, many meanings. 6 ways of holding hands. On screen is wrestling embrace, soft mats for negotiating consent, 2 rings, one for intimate space and the other for personal space. You know that line you don't want anyone to cross. A moment for two, places to measure the distance between us. Wrestling Embrace borrows its language from wrestling, a world of rings, boundaries, and rules, and physical encounter. But it asks the opposite of what wrestling often celebrates. Instead of domination, it asks for responsiveness. Instead of winning, it asks what becomes possible when 2 people commit to paying attention to one another. This image combines 2 diagrams. I think of them as circles of distance and rings of encounter. On one side are concentric circles representing proxemic distance, intimate space, personal space, social space, and public space. We're familiar with proxemics, even though we might not realize. If you've heard of the phrase standing 6 feet apart or social distancing, much of that, those ideas are coming from proxemics. On the other is a wrestling ring reduced to geometry, boundaries, measurements, dimensions, rules. I've always been fascinated by diagrams because they reveal the invisible structures that organize everyday life. The circle suggests that every body carries an architecture around it, invisible rooms that expand and contract depending on circumstance, culture, history, and trust. The wrestling ring suggests something similar. It creates a defined territory where encounters can unfold, according to shared agreements. When I began designing Wrestling Embrace, I realized that both diagrams were describing relationships. One maps distance, the other maps encounter. Placed together, they become a meditation on consent. The mats used in the project merge these visual languages. Participants sit, kneel, roll, listen, and talk within circles that make visible what's often left unspoken. How close do you want me to be? What feels safe? What feels overwhelming? When should I move closer? When should I step back? For those of us whose experiences have taught us to be vigilant, proximity can feel risky. Yet intimacy requires proximity of some kind. The challenge is not eliminating distance, but learning how to navigate it together. The map becomes a temporary landscape for practicing that navigation, a place where boundaries are not barriers, but forms of communication. You draw another card, and it says, practice holding your partner's hand. Sit, lay, or stand next to them with fingers laced or any other way you feel comfortable. Just stay together, facing each other or holding space beside each other. Do this for 5 minutes. Two bodies appear from the back, each embrace across opposing sides, sitting close to the floor. One head rests on the other's shoulder, the other rests on another. Measures of support. Four cards lay flat. Practical support. What do you support? Companionship. What supports you? Advice. Who supports you? Emotional support. Who do you share your feelings with? We're going to take a few moments to kind of settle into ourselves. I always love opportunities to return time to members of the public and return time to you all. So before I continue, I'd love to take a few moments for some journaling. And this is an activity that I often facilitate in my workshops called Dreaming Support. And we're actually going to take 5 minutes to just take a little journaling, and we'll see how we feel in like 3 minutes. And if we want to continue with journaling, but we're going to take 3 to 5 minutes to define the word support in our own words. After you've had an opportunity to define the word support, I'm going to ask you to make a story, right? Write a little bit of a story, journal about a time when you've either given support from another person or non-person, could be another living thing in the world, or journal about a time where you received support from another. So we really want to be as descriptive as we can. We're not going to share our journaling per se. We may share some later writing that we'll get into. But this is a moment for yourself. Um, if you can't remember a time like this, you absolutely make up a scenario. You can tell a tale. That's cool too. And remember, personal stories and moments of vulnerability don't necessarily have to include private information. Um, this is just a moment to kind of check in with oneself. How do we define the word support? And what was the time where we encountered it? Let's take a few minutes. For anyone who just joined us, we're taking a few minutes to journal. We're journaling on the following. We're defining the word support in our own words, and we're jotting down a time where we've either given or received support. Let's take 2 more minutes. Sometimes it takes a little time for ideas to flow, but just give yourself some time to just think about and see what comes out in your journaling about support. We're not going to be sharing our journal. We'll have an opportunity to share some later writings today, but this is just for you. 5 minutes sure goes fast, or maybe it feels slow. Just take the next couple of seconds to just wrap up your entry in your journal for now, and we'll return to that. And you're welcome to continue if you'd like to too, as I um, proceed in our presentation here. As we return from our journaling, I wanted to share with you some images from a touring exhibition that includes Wrestling Embrace. It's called In Feeling, Empathy and Tension Through Disability. It was recently at the University of Virginia, at the Fralin Museum of Art. The show was co-curated by Molly Joyce and Kristen Nassif, the curative collections at the Fralin Museum. You can see here, this shows a kind of full installation view of the exhibition. At the center is the Wrestling Embrace game mat. There are many parts of Wrestling Embrace as a project. Some are on view at Smith College Museum of Art, and others you can encounter in other formats. This exhibition will be touring in Feeling very soon. Starting next year, it will be moving throughout the country for the next 4 years. So stay tuned on Instagram. I'll share my Instagram handle towards the end, but if you're not in Massachusetts, there'll be other places throughout the country that you might get a chance to encounter Wrestling Embrace and other amazing works. Um, and Wrestling Embrace, as you can see, and as you've been able to get a glimpse into my previous slides, it's really a space for folks to kind of check in with one another. In today's session, we're really checking in with ourselves and having a moment to slow down and think about support. In my workshops and exhibitions, and even in Don't Mind If I Do, you'll encounter really activities for two people to really have a moment to really learn about someone in a kind of fun way. Folks often bring with them another person who they feel safe with, but really haven't had an opportunity to talk about what makes them feel safe. And a lot of times, always imagine Wrestling Embrace being something that someone would encounter with someone that they don't know that well, like maybe a neighbor or maybe a cousin you don't get to see a lot. But often I notice that participants are bringing people they know really well, but haven't had a kind of deeper opportunity to talk. And Wrestling Embrace really allows for that kind of engagement, or that's what I hope for at least. And as you um, work with the project, you will encounter a number of different cards. They have different categories and different symbols, knots on either side. There are a number of prompts. I usually customize the work for different settings. So you might encounter different prompts depending on where you encounter the work. And there are a number of other components. You'll see timers, hourglasses, bells, and other items that help you play. In Wrestling Embrace, there are two rings. At the center, remember to feel, relax, say it clearly and concisely, navigate by touching, show, don't tell, avoid confrontation, explore being together, maintain consent, and learn what makes you feel safe. Imagine yourself at the center of these four concentric rings. Mark a list of points. Where do these points connect? I don't remember the connection. Maybe I forgot. Two bodies appear from the front. You cannot see their faces. Holding hands, they're walking freely as if to give each other a stroll. Their feet are softly supported by the leathery mat below. A blurry hand slides a bead along a minimal bar scale set on a black table. The location of the bead is hard to discern. Below, numerous positions on the scale are words set in white. Avoidance, competition, compromise, accommodation, and above, comfort. At either end of the scale are the proxies you and I. To scale vulnerability is to choose flexibility over certainty. To recognize that comfort is dynamic, not fixed. Measures of support. A diagram of four concentric rings. Colorful dots are placed about. Some connect, intimate, personal, public, social. Can you identify any important relationships? Is your map complete? Two bodies appear from the side, hand in hand, palms in a delicate rest. Each faces one another in a steady gaze off screen. Sitting close to the floor, grounded, so close you can hear their stomach gurgle. You draw another set of cards. Only the top of the stack is visible. Hold any distance and recite heartbreaks and promises. I've had more than my share. I'm tired of giving my love and getting nowhere. Make room for the song stuck in your throat, for the ache of disappointment and still the willingness to stay. Extra credit for folks in the chat who know what these lyrics are from. Full disclosure, I'm a big nerd for 90s dance music. I promise another moment for some writing and creative activity. And based on your journal writing from a few minutes ago, um, I want to offer this activity called scoring support. Based on your journal writing, create a score for support. All right, what's a score? A score is a set of instructions, guidelines, or tasks related to the creation of a performance. It should serve as a starting point for improvisation or maybe a communication tool. We should be thinking about creating a guide for generating movement or an action. So imagine you are going to dance or perform, right? You would need directions for that. So what I'm asking folks to do in the next couple of minutes is start by creating a numbered score or choreography where you break down little moments of support into bits, pieces, gestures, or steps. So you can look at your previous journal, the story that you wrote about, and imagine you were going to have someone perform that experience of support, that moment, that gesture. What would they need to know? So you may need a separate piece of paper or your journal, or you can use a personal device to complete this activity as well. Um, I offer here the this idea of maybe numbering your steps, numbering your score. That's something that I do all the time. And I'll never ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So I wanted to share my score before you get writing. This is from a piece called Lessons. Stand side to side. 0, error. 1, hand in hand, place your hand over your partner's. Negotiate. 2, slide fingertips across the palm. Glide with a slow, undesired grasp. Slip. Release. Number 3, repeat. Number 4, closer yet, pull your partner towards you, wrap your arm around theirs, bring them even closer. Guide their inner bicep towards your chest. 5, repeat. 6, together now, bring your partner closer, at the same time, inseparable. Release. 0, error. 7, palms outward, inward, get your partner's attention, grab their pinky finger, hold on just long enough. 8, once more, this time a little slower on the release. Let's take a few minutes to imagine our own score, our own guide, numbered steps for support. And you can reflect on your story that you were journaling about a little earlier, or make something else. We'll have an opportunity to share our scores in about 5 minutes or so, or share some snippets of our scores. I'd love to hear yours. So let's take a few minutes for some writing. taking a moment to create our own score for support. Imagine someone else was going to dance or perform your score. What would they need to know to do that? Think about these as steps. So try to be as simple as possible. It's okay if you have a lot of steps. Let's take a couple more minutes, maybe 2 minutes. And I'd love to hear some of your scores if you're open to sharing in a few minutes, even if it's just an excerpt. How did we do? We got a lot of scores out here. I'd love to hear if anybody would like to share a little bit about their writing. Um, I'd love to uh, hear them. I'm happy to read them out for the group. If you want to share them in the group chat, that would be awesome. Don't share what you don't feel like you would like to, but if there's any bits about your writing that you'd like some airtime, or feel free to put in the chat. Any takers? Anyone like to share? I can share one of my other favorite scores, a little excerpt of it. I don't have a slide, but I can read it. It's from Park MacArthur and Konstantina Zavatsanos, and it's the score for lift and transfer. It goes like this. Ready? Ready? Work to deliver your body safely from platform to platform, surface to surface. Hold yourself. Stand. Stand and hold yourself while holding someone else. Learn how the you of your body and the me of mine work our mutual instability together. Learn how the instability of holding while moving is a movement. It's a moment. Learn that to move is to hold a we. When we're crossing, dressing, lifting, rounding, it reminds me how rarely I share this kind of coordinated, unstable touching, these routine experimentations with others besides Amelie. What contexts, proximities, and spaces permit the sharing of these simple actions? And that was from Park MacArthur and Konstantina Zavatsanos. So I'm happy to move on. Oh, we might have some chats. So let's see. Awesome. I'll read out from Lauren. Number one, numb. Number two, look at. Number three, ponder, thought. Four, speak out. Five, rise up. Six, walk over to. Seven, lift up. Eight, look over. Nine, ask why. What? 10, wipe tears. 11, softly speak. 12, adjust shirt. 13, hug closely. 14, rock to side and side. 15, safe, comfort. I love that. This is for comforting a child who fell. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else want to share any writing? So before we get to some questions, which I'm happy to take questions. Um, I'm curious about if you want to take a moment to um, kind of meditate on what you learned from today's moment of creativity and mindfulness that you weren't expecting. And this is really a question for yourself, like what something that maybe came up in your journaling or came up in your score. If you'd like to share it, I'd love to hear it. But I wanted to offer one last moment for you. I love this from Grace. One of your numbers for number 9 was move hand from head to partner's shoulder gently.
It looks like we do have a few questions, Jeff. I don't know if you want me
Awesome,
to
great.
ask. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a way people can access your cards online or digitally?
I'll put in the chat, I do have a workbook that has some of the prompts called Practicing Distance. Um, One of the things that I'm working on is a release for Wrestling Embrace as a more popular release of the full collection. We don't have them all digitally, but I do have a bunch of exercises in practicing distance that you might be interested in. But stay tuned. People have been staying tuned for a while, so I appreciate the patience. But I am working on a new kit and card deck, which folks will be able to purchase or access digitally. So appreciate that.
Awesome. Looks like another question. So what opportunities do you see for museums to better engage with questions of accessibility and collective care?
I love that. I think that there's a lot of opportunities to just offer more flexible spaces within museums to encounter artworks, or really to just have opportunity to make and to linger for a while and for um, the museum to be a space where you feel that you can access the resources in the exhibition in an extended period of time. So I think that for me, creating more um, sort of sensory forward spaces where either you can have opportunities to touch works, to kind of slow down with them and have maybe a museum docent with you to work through questions that you might have. Um, More of kind of like interpersonal and sort of intimate facilitation in museums is something that I think that I'd love to see happen more. Definitely, as Finnegan Shannon would say as well, like more places to just kind of like rest or to like kind of take a nap
Yeah.
or hang out.
Mhm.
That's something that I definitely would um, encourage to. For myself, one of the things that I'm always curious to see when I visit museums, or frankly don't get a lot of opportunity to see or to encounter is like spaces where you can be part of the public but not feel like you're on display. Places to kind of opt out and have maybe quieter moments with work or I think that that's something that would I'd love to see, but also I don't encounter it very often. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so those are some things. I could probably talk forever about that, but
I guess, and another question, are there any projects or ideas you have not yet realized that you're hoping to maybe go to explore or get more into details about?
so I've been working with this sort of framework of proxemics for a long time. So working with different kind of measurements of space. Um, in the sense of like in the works Wrestling Embrace, we're primarily dealing with like intimate space and personal space, which is really not that far from each other. It's like a maximum of like 3 feet from one another.
Mhm.
But I'm curious about creating more projects at different scales of engagement, and I've had opportunities to work with social scale, which is like 6 feet to 12 feet and even bigger scale. So I really am curious about like what would like a wrestling embrace look like at like a plaza level or
Mhm.
I've had opportunities to do that in some sense, projects like soft spots or even there's a project Inside Voices which is on tour now, that get to that size, but I'm interested to like create games in public space. I think that's something that I'm interested in.
Awesome. Looks like there's another question. Can you talk more about the use of text and design in your work?
I'm trained as a designer first before really being trained as an artist. So I had opportunity to work and receive schooling, and I continue to work. in graphic design, and I also studied more spatial design at the urban planning and urban design level. So I'm really interested in the way that design can immediately bring a use value to art. And I believe art is useful for many things, right? Um, I'm also interested in bringing in the design element to like create tools where people can use the artwork to solve problems or investigate something deeply or communicate. So for me, design is a language that I'm fluent in, but it also helps me build participation between museum visitors, workshop
Mhm.
participants, or others. Yeah, I do have text a lot. Actually, all my work has text. I'm about to say that, and I'll probably find an example that doesn't. But almost all my work has text. I think part of that is because I'm trained as a graphic designer, and typography is something that's really native to me. But also, I find it to be a medium that can translate to other mediums really well. So maybe you encounter the text visually, but you might encounter it tactilely in other projects or through sound and audio in other work. So I'm able to work through different media with text. And I would say that I'm just as much of a writer as I am a visual artist. So text and typography are a good way to kind of write through space and write through environments and write through situations. I always say I'm going to make more books, but then I end up making more games and situations
Mhm.
to house my writing.
I know you kind of briefly touched on it. You said there's an exhibit happening that you're a part of right now or that's coming up. I don't know if you want to speak about that.
Yeah, so there's another exhibition that will be up until October I can't remember the October. I'll say that I can't remember the end date.
Yeah.
And it's called How Do You Throw a Brick Through the Window? And it is at the John Michael Kohler Art Center in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And it's a group show of a number of artists who are working on the question of what are the sort of unique ways in which the disability community protests, and what are creative ways which that happens. And there are a number of artist works from sculpture to text um, to video. So that's going to be up for a while, a couple more months.
That sounds great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I think we'll close out. So if you want to go to the next slide for me, that would be great. So I
Awesome.
just wanted to thank everyone for being here today, and a special thank you, of course, to Jeff for such a wonderful presentation. And I know I learned a lot from doing these writing exercises that I hope to continue. So we'll be sending out a follow-up email in the coming days with links to Jeff's work, his information about upcoming programs, way to get in contact with Jeff directly. So make sure to check that out. We'll also hope to enjoy you for our next Second Friday event, which is on July 10th from 4 to 8, with a hands-on art making activity in the museum atrium between 4 and 7. And at 5:30, there will be a gallery talk with curator Danielle Carabino, and visitor of all ages are welcome. And we are also excited to announce that our upcoming exhibition, Composing Color Paintings by Alma Thomas from the Smithsonian American Art Museum, which opens on July 24th. We look forward to sharing this vibrant and important exhibition with you all. And finally, we are deeply grateful to our friends at SCMA. Your support makes programs like this possible and help the museum remain a place for connection, learning, creativity, and discovery. If you are interested in becoming a friend of SCMA, we invite you to visit our website or email us at scmafriends@smith.edu to learn more. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the museum soon, whether online or in person. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.